Hey guys! So today you and I are going to talk about unnecessary libraries. So let's get into it. So the question in question today was, Frederick, have you ever worked on a project that didn't use any unnecessary libraries? So I'm just gonna skip ahead to the end of this question and say that no, I haven't. I've never done so, mostly because it's pretty much, well, there are many ways that you can get unnecessary libraries into the tech stack. One such thing, and this is something that quite a lot of people underestimate when they work with programming, and that is that as time progresses, new decisions are made on behalf of the company. Now, I've touched a little bit on this before, and it is one of the most underappreciated and underestimated. Well, it's not really a problem. It's just that it's a constant in software development. Things change, and as things change, the new decisions that are made may or may not affect decisions that have been made and make them more or less valid at any time, pretty much in this lifetime of a project. And as you can imagine, today, as an example, if you were to work on a project that used jQuery, well, per my definition, to these days, that's an unnecessary library. It's really not all that useful to have it as part of the tech stack anymore. But it wasn't unnecessary back in the day. Just kind of got to a point where it's not that relevant anymore. And the same thing, that's the nice way. It's like the nicest way to have such a dependency that turns into something that you're not really all that, well, you're not going to use it all that much more, right? But usually the way it goes, because that's kind of the thing, if you can imagine jQuery being something that's going to fall into legacy at some point, ask yourself the same question regarding all of these other libraries that people add. I mean, there is this, I'm not saying obsession, but there is a very big, like especially in front end, there's a tendency to add these libraries, like different libraries, for subjective value. Now, what I mean by subjective value is that it's really not all that many people in a project that feel that this specific library is a must-have. There are those libraries, and this is the thing that I've argued quite a lot of times. I mean, if you can get a library into the tech stack where everybody agrees pretty much that this is critical or this is quite useful, then that should be, I mean, that's the common denominator. That's the thing that you should focus on, but that's very rarely the case. And most of the time what I see, however, is that people have a tendency to add a library which only really gives something useful to a few of them. And if we then accept the fact that it's going to become legacy, then the question really only comes down to how quick is it going to become legacy. And I can promise you it happens quite quickly when you're actually only improving your own workflow. Now what I mean by that is very simple. If you were to, because I've never done this, I have so far never ever worked on a project where every single library in the tech stack was understood and appreciated by every person working at that company. There are those libraries there. There are definitely libraries where everybody feels like this is very useful and this is something we should really have. But then there's all this other stuff where someone added it in because, hey, they want to try something new, or they added it in because it's going to help their personal development experience, and that is really like one of the biggest roots of evil there is in programming these days, and that's developer experience. Because I mean, especially once again, if you do it in front end, if you're adding a library for developer experience, then you should have some type of license revoked in my world. Because basically the production cost that you will take will only help, well, quite a lot of people add unnecessary libraries at the cost of performance once the application is actually built, only in order to improve their own workflow. And I mean, it's not the end of the world necessarily. It's more about these things starts to matter. The best way I can describe it is that, like, and this is kind of the root issue that I have with this attitude of adding so-called unnecessary libraries. Because if we accept that the more stuff you have, the harder it is for you to maintain. You can think of it as having threads. Like every dependency you have and every decision you make in the code base is a thread. It's just a small thread that gets connected to your project, right? And as time goes along, trust me, even without you trying to, you will get more and more threads, more and more technical decisions. And this is where we start to accumulate some type of legacy, right? Now the issue with this is that in the beginning it's very easy for you. If you have like three, 4 libraries or like a few threads, it's fairly simple for you to still move around with that code base and make the decisions that you want, because even if you have a thread, you can move that thread, you can remove it, you can add it, so forth. But when you start to have like maybe 10 threads, 20 threads, when you're starting to actually accumulate a little bit, then it starts to affect your ability to move around. All these threads are connected to your code, and every decision you want to make, you need to make sure that everything is on board and everything can move together. And another analogy that is nice, it's kind of like carrying a box versus carrying a ton of Lego bricks. It's more error prone, it's likelier that something will spill, it's likelier that something will be incompatible, because you have all these different libraries that may or may not be developed by different people with different intentions, and then you need to make sure that everything plays nice. Like, actually, just the other day, my coworker who came up to me and was saying that one of the things that he truly he had a problem with this. He was explaining that he was working on a story for a refactoring story, and he said, like, my problem is basically that with all of these different dependencies is that okay, so I got it to work. I got the thing that I want to work, but now I need to make sure that it also works in that scenario, and this scenario, and that scenario, and this scenario, and so forth. And I told him, yeah, that's exactly your problem, because you have all these different dependencies. You remember I've told, and he's one of the biggest culprits as well. This is why I keep telling you, dude. Don't add in things you aren't sure about. Don't try to add all these subjective things that just affects your workflow, because trust me, the more you have, the bigger the problem. This is your problem right here. You've made, it's not just him, it's quite a lot of other people, because that's also kind of fun with people who add these different libraries. They're very open to the idea that the library that they are adding is nice and gives a contribution of some sort, because hey, they're interested in it. And then they are frustrated, of course, in turn. These same people who do, I mean, I have a saying, and that is that never ever underestimate people's ability to justify their own actions. And that's exactly what they do. Like, when they add it, it's fine, but when somebody else adds it, it's frustrating, it's something that is in the way, it's clunky, and so forth, and they complain. And that's just like a vicious circle. People just keep on doing it, and you keep on arriving at a system where quite a lot of these libraries are used in a few places, but we could probably do without them. So what I want you to take away from this is basically that if you, like, I've never ever worked with anybody on any project where everybody felt that this is, like, all of these libraries have a purpose, they have a usage, and we kind of need these in order to deliver our work. And I really do believe that that is the way you should go. You should go towards having the minimum amount of libraries, the minimum amount of dependencies, within reason, of course, to avoid this issue. Because as I said earlier, the more you have, the more complicated it becomes for you to move around. The more strings attached, the harder it is to move. And that's the thing that is most important. Simplicity equals flexibility, and those are the things that are most important pretty much for every single IT project. Have a great day.